My name is Ozawa Bineshi Albert. I am with the Climate Justice Alliance, one of the co-directors there with the Climate Justice Alliance from the United States. I am Eugene Anishinaabe, and I'm from Oklahoma. So the Climate Justice Alliance, we're a member organization. We have 89 members nationally in the U.S., some local organizations, and some international. And for me and for that work, the main agents of the climate solutions are those communities that we call frontline communities, and frontline communities being those who are most directly impacted by climate change now, and some of them who have been impacted by climate change for decades. Those are the agents that we feel like have the strongest, most just solutions about how we should address this climate crisis. For us, we're thinking us being here is about making sure our elected officials who are in these negotiating, some of them who are in the negotiating spaces and the delegation that represents our country, are hearing the voices that we have and the solutions that are coming from communities. But we're also here to lift up climate change and the negative impacts of this climate crisis on communities is also based in human rights. Can we have a right to live in our communities without pollution? Can we have a right to be in our communities without harm from polluting industries? And then also around reparations, there's been decades of harm to communities, and how are we compensating those communities who have been dealing with drought and wildfires and extreme weather and displacement because of lack of food security because of drought? How are we compensating those communities? And even some communities who have lost land because of sea level rise, right? Whole villages who've had to pick up and move somewhere else. Who is responsible for the cost of that? And so also here for COP, that's one of the things that we want to make sure that this discussion about reparations is not just about the carbon finance that the corporations are wanting to do, but about how are we going to get real resources to the communities who need it the most and who have been dealing with the harms for the longest period of time. So that's part of our thinking of some of the messages and some of the issues that we want to make sure that those who are negotiating hear our voices about that. And then about solutions, we have communities who are implementing solutions in their own communities based on the harms that they're experiencing, right? And they're doing these sometimes despite any government support or any other financial support. They're doing them because it's what is needed in our community. And we want to lift up those solutions. And sometimes people say, oh, but there's such a small thing. And, a community garden is not going to make that big of an impact. And in the same breath say, hey, we want to do nature-based solutions. And can you do, have your farm be a carbon offset, right? And so it's not all, it's a contradiction when we say, oh, we can't invest in that small project, but then we're saying, oh, but we want to invest in farmers if they let us use their carbon offset and allow pollution to keep happening in those same communities. And so those are the kind of solutions that we want to see lift up. And for COP, it's hard. That's a challenge, right? Because they're oh, it's too small of a solution. It was well, if we talk about a scale of having thousands and thousands of these happening all across each of the countries, that's a different kind of scale. And that is what we want to see happen, and that kind of investment happen, and not into, these market solutions or technologies that haven't really been proven to work. We need to invest in solutions that deal with the harms that people are experiencing now. The main roadblocks is that many of our governments, there's frontline communities all across the world, right? Grassroots, indigenous communities, black, brown communities all across the world who are dealing with the crisis and have for a long time. Our biggest challenge is our governments are not developing policy based on the harms that they're feeling. They're basing their policy on the economic value of climate crisis, right? And they're trying to create more mechanisms that are about the profit, and they're not moving with the urgency of the harms that communities are feeling.